You have come here because you sense deep within your soul that the patterns you live by are not accidental. You suspect that the chaos in your relationships, the storms that keep returning, are not simply bad luck or the cruelty of the world. I tell you now, as I would if I were standing before you, that what you call love is often nothing more than a mirror for the chaos you have not yet confronted within yourself. This is a truth few dare to face, because it means that the pain you feel is not only caused by others, but also arises from the depths of your own unconscious. It is as if the soul is addicted to its own wounds, drawn again and again to the same flame, even though it burns. An empath, you see, is not merely a gentle soul who feels too much. An empath is someone whose soul has been trained, often through suffering, to survive by reading the shadows of others. It is a survival instinct, born from the need to understand the moods and unspoken dangers of those who once held power over you. Perhaps, as a child, you learned to sense when the storm was coming before anyone else could smell the rain. Perhaps you learned that love was not warmth, but a sudden shift in tone, a sharpness in the voice, a silence that meant you must tread lightly. That is how chaos became your language, and now, as an adult, you seek it unconsciously, mistaking it for passion, mistaking it for life. I have spent my life studying the strange geometry of the psyche. It is not linear, not rational. It is a labyrinth of symbols and archetypes, where the child still walks in the corridors of memory and the shadow lurks in every corner. When an empath loves, they do not love as a free being. They love as one searching for the parent they could not heal, the wound they could not mend, the chaos they could not calm. They seek to repeat the pattern, hoping that this time, if they love deeply enough, purely enough, the chaos will transform into peace. But it does not, because chaos cannot be healed by becoming its servant. What is chaos? It is not simply noise or disorder. Psychologically, chaos is the unintegrated shadow. Everything we have rejected, feared, or buried within ourselves. It is the pain that was never given words, the rage that was never allowed to burn, the tears that were swallowed to keep the peace. When you meet someone who carries chaos, you feel a strange pull, as if the universe has sent you a challenge. You want to soothe them, to rescue them, to hold their darkness and make it light. But do you see what you are truly doing? You are trying to rescue the unrescued child within yourself. And until you see this, until you name this pattern, you will continue to dance with chaos and call it love. Empaths are not addicted to chaos because they enjoy suffering. No, it is far more mysterious than that. They are addicted because chaos feels familiar, and the familiar feels safe, even when it is destroying them. Imagine a river that has carved its path over centuries. Even if you try to divert it, the water longs to return to its old course. Your psyche is the same. The grooves of your early experiences run deep, And every new relationship you form flows into those grooves unless you consciously reshape the land. Chaos, disguised as love, is simply the river running where it has always run, carving deeper scars into your heart. There is another reason why chaos feels like love. It is alive with archetypal energy. When you meet someone who embodies your shadow, there is a spark, a fire, a feeling that the air itself is charged. This is because the unconscious is at work, and it always draws us toward what is unresolved. The lover who is unstable, who withdraws and returns like a tide, activates the ancient archetype of the chase, the dance between hunter and prey, savior and victim. It feels intense because it is, but intensity is not the same as love. Intensity is often a signal that something old and wounded within you has been awakened, demanding your attention. And instead of turning inward to heal it, you turn towards the person who triggered it, trying to resolve through them what must be resolved within. You may ask, how can one break this addiction? The first step is not to run from chaos, but to see it for what it is, to look at the relationship that burns you and say, this is my shadow, dressed in human form. This is my own unhealed wound, playing out on the stage of my life. It is a hard thing to admit, for it means that the drama you are trapped in is not simply about them, but also about you. And yet, this is the beginning of freedom. To see is to awaken. To awaken is to choose differently. Do not think, however, that the shadow is your enemy. It is not. The shadow is your teacher. It contains the parts of you that you have denied the anger you were told was unacceptable, the power you feared, the desire you buried because it did not fit the image of the good you were taught to be. Empaths, in particular, often exile their own darkness, believing that to feel anger or to set boundaries makes them unloving, but this repression only feeds the addiction to chaos. For when you deny your own shadow, you seek it in others. You fall in love with the one who is wild, unpredictable, destructive, because they carry the fire. You have disowned. There is a strange alchemy that happens when you reclaim your shadow. Suddenly, chaos no longer seduces you. The lovers who once captivated you with their unpredictability no longer seem so intoxicating. You see them clearly as they are, without the veil of your projections, and in that clarity you realize that love does not have to hurt, does not have to feel like walking on a battlefield. Love can be still, it can be safe. It can be a mirror, not of your wounds, but of your wholeness. I have spoken often of individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. For the empath, individuation means turning away from the endless task of healing others and turning inward to heal oneself. It means asking, what part of me seeks this chaos? What old wound am I trying to resolve? What would love feel like if I no longer needed to suffer to feel alive? These are not easy questions. They will take you into the depths of your own psyche, where the child you once were still waits, still calls for the love they did not receive. But if you can answer those calls, if you can hold that child with the compassion you give so freely to others, then the addiction begins to loosen its grip. The unconscious is like a vast ocean, and most of us sail on its surface, unaware of the storms below. When chaos appears in your life, it is like a wave rising from the depths, trying to get your attention. Do not fight the wave, for it will only grow stronger. Dive into it. Ask it what it wants to show you. You will find that the chaos is not random. It is patterned. It is intelligent. It is the language of your soul, speaking through the symbols of your relationships. Every lover who has wounded you is a symbol. Every heartbreak is an initiation. Each one says, here is the wound. Here is the shadow. Here is the part of you that longs to be seen. Consider the archetype of the wounded healer, which is so often the secret story of the empath. The wounded healer is one who has suffered, and through that suffering developed the capacity to feel the pain of others. But the danger of this archetype is that the healer forgets their own wound. They pour themselves out for others, trying to heal the world, while their own soul bleeds in silence. Chaos disguised as love is one of the traps that the wounded healer falls into, because they believe that if they can heal the chaotic lover, they will finally heal themselves. But healing does not happen through another. It happens when you turn inward and face your own fire. In the quiet of your own heart, ask yourself, what would it feel like to love without rescuing, without fixing, without losing yourself in the storm of someone else's pain? This question may terrify you, because if you are not rescuing, who are you? If you are not drowning in someone's chaos, what will you feel? For many empaths, stillness feels like emptiness, and they mistake that emptiness for a lack of love. But stillness is not emptiness. It is the space where true love can grow, a love that is not born of trauma but of presence. We must speak of dreams, for dreams are the language of the unconscious. Have you ever dreamed of trying to rescue someone from a burning house? Or trying to hold back a flood with your bare hands? These are not just dreams, they are symbols of your inner life. They tell you that you are carrying too much, that you are fighting chaos, that is not yours to fight. Or perhaps you dream of being lost in a labyrinth, running in circles, unable to find a way out. That too is a mirror of your addiction to chaotic love. The labyrinth is not outside you, it is within. And the way out is not to run faster, but to stop, to turn inward and to see the truth of where you are. When we enter relationships, we rarely meet the other person as they truly are. Instead, we meet the projection of our own unconscious onto them, a reflection shaped by memory, pain, and longing. The empath, especially, is like a mirror turned outward, always reflecting, always absorbing. Their love is often less about seeing the other as they are, and more about trying to heal something that once went wrong within themselves. This is why chaos feels so magnetic. It is the perfect surface upon which the empath projects their desire to repair what was once broken, they do not consciously choose this path. It is the path chosen by the unconscious, which seeks healing through repetition. The psyche is not interested in comfort, it is interested in wholeness. Wholeness requires confrontation with the shadow, and the shadow often comes dressed as the lover who triggers your deepest wounds. You are drawn to them because your soul recognizes in them an opportunity to awaken, yet this awakening rarely comes without pain. We love most intensely where we are most wounded. The very intensity you feel in these relationships is proof that the unconscious is at work, stirring the depths. You may think, this must be love, for why else would I feel so much? But intensity is not the measure of love. Often, it is the measure of how fiercely your inner child clings to the hope of being seen, healed, and saved at last. The addiction to chaos is like a ritual. You meet someone who embodies the unpredictable, the wounded, the destructive. Something inside you lights up. You feel alive, needed, necessary. You believe that your empathy, your ability to love without condition, will transform them. And for a while, it seems to work. They open to you. They soften. They show you their vulnerability. But then the cycle turns. The storm returns. The chaos rises. And you find yourself fighting to keep the love alive. This cycle is not about them. It is about your soul's unresolved wound, playing itself out again and again until you recognize it. When I speak of archetypes, I am speaking of the fundamental patterns of human existence, those ancient forces that shape our lives from the depths of the collective unconscious. The empath addicted to chaos is often caught between the archetypes of the savior and the victim. They are both at once saving others while being destroyed by the very people they try to rescue. This is not accidental. The unconscious seeks to integrate these polarities, to teach you that you are neither purely savior nor purely victim, but a soul that contains both light and shadow. To break free, you must withdraw these projections. You must see that you are not here to save the chaos in others. You are here to rescue the abandoned parts of yourself. Think of the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. Orpheus, the great musician, descends into the underworld to rescue his beloved Eurydice. His music is so beautiful that even Hades allows her to follow him back to the light. But only on one condition: he must not look back. And yet, at the very last moment, he does. He cannot resist. Edut, Elos is her. This myth speaks to the empath's struggle. You descend into the underworld of someone else's pain, believing that your love will bring them into the light. But the deeper you go, the more you risk becoming lost yourself. The underworld is not meant to be conquered. It is meant to be understood. You are not here to pull another from their darkness, but to face your own. Empaths often mistake the chaos of another person's life for a sign of depth, passion, or authenticity. They believe that calmness is a sign of superficiality, that only through struggle and fire can real love be forged. But this belief is a lie rooted in early experiences of love entwined with pain. When love first arrived in your life mixed with fear or neglect, you learn to associate suffering with care, Now, as an adult, you seek partners who repeat that pattern because it is the only language of love, you know. This is not love. It is trauma wearing the mask of romance. The true path of the empath is to unlearn this language. It is to recognize that love is not meant to be chaos, that real intimacy is not built on a battlefield. This is difficult because the stillness of healthy love can feel alien. When someone treats you with respect, consistency, and care, you may feel bored or restless, as if something is missing. What is missing is the chaos, the high and low of the emotional roller coaster. But that roller coaster is not love, it is addiction. It is the nervous system seeking the familiar shocks of the past. You must retrain your soul to find beauty in the calm, to find passion in the presence of peace. The unconscious communicates not only through dreams, but also through symbols that appear in waking life. When chaos dominates your relationships, ask yourself, what symbol is this presenting to me? Is this partner a symbol of my unresolved anger, my fear of abandonment, my longing for control? The people we are drawn to are rarely chosen consciously. They are summoned by the unconscious as mirrors for what we need to see. When you realize this, the dynamic begins to shift. The person who once held such power over your emotions becomes less of a god or demon and more of a messenger. They are showing you what is still unhealed. Empaths have a unique relationship with the collective unconscious because they feel so deeply. They are often like antennas, picking up not only the emotions of individuals, but also the archetypal energies moving through society. This sensitivity can be a gift, but without boundaries. It becomes a curse. If you are constantly absorbing the pain of others, you lose touch with your own essence. You begin to believe that your purpose is to carry burdens, to fix, to heal, to suffer for others. But this is not individuation. Individuation is not about becoming less sensitive. It is about becoming conscious. It is about learning to stand in your own center, to feel, without being consumed. Chaos disguised as love is often a test of this ability. When someone storms into your life with all their wounds, you feel compelled to help to take their pain as your own. But the deeper truth is that every person must carry their own shadow. You cannot take another's shadow without drowning in it. The greatest act of love you can offer is to hold space for them without losing yourself. This requires strength, not sacrifice. Clarity, not codependence. Imagine for a moment a dream. You are standing in a burning city. All around you, people cry out for help. You try to save them, but every building you enter begins to collapse. Your arms ache, your breath grows short, yet you keep going, thinking that if you just try harder, you can rescue everyone. But suddenly you realize this is not your city. You do not belong to these flames. Your task is not to save the city, but to step out of it, to walk toward the horizon where the smoke clears. This dream, which has come to many empaths, is not a call to abandon others, but to remember that your soul has its own path. You cannot walk it if you are forever trapped in someone else's fire. There is a profound loneliness that comes with breaking the addiction to chaos. When you stop chasing those who wound you, when you no longer mistake drama for intimacy, you may feel a vast emptiness. This is because the noise is gone, and in its place is silence. But this silence is sacred. It is the space where your true self begins to speak. Do not rush to fill it. Do not run back to the storm. Wait, listen. In this quiet, you will hear the voice of your own soul. And it will tell you what love truly is. Love, in its essence, is not a fire that burns you, but a light that illuminates you. It does not demand that you lose yourself. It asks that you find yourself again and again in the presence of another. Healthy love is not chaotic, because it does not come from the wound. It comes from the wholeness of two beings who have faced their shadows and chosen to grow. To an empath, this may feel strange at first, as if something essential is missing. But what is missing is only the pain you no longer need. When you step out of the addiction to chaos, you will see the world differently. The archetypes that once ruled, you will no longer hold the same power. The savior, the victim, the martyr, they will fade. And in their place will arise a new archetype, the sovereign self. This self does not seek validation through suffering. It does not measure love by how much it can endure. It simply is. It stands in its own light, and from that light, it chooses. The sovereign self is not born overnight. It emerges slowly, like dawn breaking through a long and restless night. For the empath who has lived in the shadows of chaos, this dawn may feel unsettling at first. Imagine waking in a room that has always been dark and suddenly having sunlight flood through the windows. It is beautiful, yes, but also overwhelming. You must let your eyes adjust to the light of your own wholeness. This is the challenge, and the gift of breaking free from chaotic love. You are no longer defined by what you heal in others, but by the radiance of what you have integrated within yourself. We must speak of the inner child again, for it is the silent architect of so many of our adult choices. The empath often carries a child who learned that love was inconsistent, unpredictable, and conditional. Perhaps you grew up with a parent whose affection came and went like the tide, who loved you when you pleased them and withdrew when you did not. This taught your nervous system that love is a prize to be earned, not a birthright. As an adult, you unconsciously seek relationships that replicate this pattern, believing that if you can finally earn the love of someone chaotic, you will heal that ancient wound. But this is a trap. The wound cannot be healed by repetition. It can only be healed by recognition and compassion for the child you once were. When I worked with patients who were caught in these cycles, I often asked them to speak to their inner child as if they were a real person. What would you say to that child who trembled in the presence of chaos? Would you tell them to work harder to earn love, or would you take them into your arms and say, you are enough, you are worthy of love without suffering? This dialogue is not symbolic alone, it is transformative. For when you give the inner child the love they never received, you no longer look for chaos to fill that void. You begin to recognize that the love you seek has always been within you. Chaos has another seductive quality. it gives us the illusion of depth, a relationship filled with highs and lows, with tears and reconciliations, feels intense, as if we are living at the edge of existence. But this is not true depth. True depth is quiet. It is found in the moments of stillness when two souls simply exist together without masks. Without games, chaos keeps us distracted from this stillness because it forces us to focus on survival rather than connection. The empath who is addicted to chaos is always scanning, always trying to predict the next emotional storm, and in doing so, they miss the deeper intimacy that comes from simply being. You may wonder why the empath, who is often so wise and intuitive, struggles to see this pattern in themselves. The answer lies in the unconscious. The empath's gift of sensitivity is often rooted in early trauma, which means that their intuition is shaped by survival rather than by freedom. They are hyper-attuned to the moods of others because they had to be, not because they chose to be. This survival-based sensitivity becomes a default lens through which they see the world, and when you have always worn such a lens, it is difficult to imagine seeing differently. The work then is not to abandon your sensitivity, but to transform it, to shift from being a prisoner of chaos to being a conscious witness of it. Dreams offer profound guidance in this process. I recall a dream shared by someone who struggled with chaotic love. In the dream, they were climbing a mountain while carrying another person on their back. The higher they climbed, the heavier the person became, until they could no longer move. They woke in tears, realizing that this was the story of their life, always carrying someone else's weight, always believing that love meant burden. I told them that the dream was not a judgment, but a mirror. It showed them the pattern, so they could choose differently. What would it mean, I asked, to climb the mountain alone, free and unburdened? That question changed everything. To the empath, freedom can feel like abandonment. You fear that if you let go of the chaotic person, you are failing them, betraying them, leaving them to suffer. But you must understand that you are not responsible for healing every wound you encounter. Each soul has its own journey, its own underworld to navigate. When you carry someone up the mountain, you deprive them of their own strength. Love is not about carrying, it is about walking beside. It is about saying, I see you. I believe in your ability to rise. And sometimes the greatest act of love is stepping aside so they can face their own shadow. There is also the archetype of the anima and animus, which plays a significant role in our attraction to chaos. The anima, the feminine soul image in a man, and the animus, the masculine soul image in a woman, are often projected onto romantic partners. We see in the other what we cannot yet see in ourselves. The empath, who often represses their own power or assertiveness, may project that energy onto a chaotic partner who embodies those qualities in distorted form. They are drawn to this person, not because they are healthy, but because they carry a piece of the empath's own disowned self. The task then is to reclaim that projection, to integrate the power, passion, or wideness that has been exiled within. When you do this, the magnetic pull toward chaos weakens. For you no longer need the other to carry what is yours. Consider the image of fire. Fire is both creation and destruction. It can warm your home or burn it to the ground. Many empaths are drawn to lovers who are like fire intense, unpredictable, consuming. They believe that to stand close to such fire is to feel alive, but what they do not realize is that they themselves are the fire. They have simply forgotten. They have buried their own power so deep that they seek it in others. When you reclaim your own fire, when you learn to burn brightly without consuming yourself, you will no longer be seduced by the destructive flames of chaotic love. The journey of individuation is, in many ways, a journey of reclaiming what you have projected. Every person who fascinates or triggers you is holding a piece of your own soul. The chaotic lover is holding your shadow, your repressed anger, your wildness, your fear. When you integrate these aspects, you no longer need to chase them outside of yourself. You can meet others as equals, not as saviors or victims. This is what true love requires: two whole beings, each aware of their own shadow, choosing to walk together. Let us return to the image of the labyrinth. The empath lost in chaotic love often feels like someone trapped in a maze, running in circles, always trying to find the exit, but ending up at the same walls. The key to this labyrinth is not speed, but awareness. When you stop running and begin to observe the pattern, you realize that the walls are illusions built from old beliefs. I must earn love. I must fix them. I am only valuable when I am needed. These beliefs are the true prison. When you challenge them, the walls crumble and the way forward appears. In my work, I often spoke of the confrontation with the unconscious as a descent. To face your shadow is to enter the underworld, to meet the dragons that guard the treasure of your own soul. For the empath, one of these dragons is a belief that chaos equals love. This dragon must be faced directly. You must look it in the eye and say, I see you for what you are. I will not worship you anymore. Only then can you rise from the underworld carrying the treasure of self-knowledge. There is great power in naming things. When you name your pattern, when you say out loud, I am drawn to chaos because it feels familiar. You break its spell. The unconscious thrives on secrecy. It loses its power when brought into the light. Speak your truth, even if it trembles. Say, I no longer choose suffering disguised as love. I choose to see love as peace, as growth, as a mirror of my wholeness. This declaration, though simple, can shift the course of your life. We cannot end this exploration without speaking of forgiveness. Not forgiveness for the chaotic lovers who have wounded you, that is their path. Not use, but forgiveness for yourself. Forgive yourself for staying too long, for mistaking pain for passion, for abandoning your own needs to care for another. You did these things not because you were weak, but because you were trying to find the love you deserved. There is no shame in that. The moment you forgive yourself, you free yourself. The chains of addiction to chaos begin to fall away. The empath's journey is not to reject their sensitivity, but to transform it into conscious strength. Sensitivity without consciousness becomes a trap, a net in which you catch all the wounds of the world and confuse them with your own. But sensitivity infused with awareness becomes a gift of clarity. You can sense the pain of another without becoming entangled in it, just as you can stand near fire without letting it consume you. This shift is not sudden. It is born from countless small moments of self-awareness, from the courage to pause when chaos calls your name and ask, is this love? Or is this my shadow seeking recognition? There is a peculiar loneliness that comes when you stop dancing with chaos. The world around you may feel quieter, and at first you might miss the storm. It is natural to miss it, for it has been your companion for so long. The highs and lows of chaotic love, as destructive as they are, also create a kind of intoxication, a chemical storm in the body that mimics passion. When that storm is gone, you may feel a void, but the void is not emptiness. It is the fertile ground where new patterns can grow. It is in this silence that you will begin to hear your own voice again, the voice that chaos once drowned out. Do not underestimate the courage it takes to choose peace over chaos. For the empath, peace can feel foreign, even dull, because it does not trigger the familiar adrenaline of survival. But peace is where true love lives. Peace is where the soul finds space to grow. When you no longer need to chase or fix or heal, you can finally be present. You can meet another human being not as a savior or a mirror for your wounds, but as a fellow traveler on the path of wholeness. The path of individuation is a path of descent before ascent. You must descend into the patterns that bind you, face them, and understand their roots. For the empath, this means looking honestly at your own past, at the moments when love first became tangled with fear or chaos. What did you learn as a child about what it means to be loved? Were you taught that love must be earned, that it comes with conditions, that it disappears? When you misstep, these lessons live in your unconscious, shaping every relationship you enter, but they are not the truth. They are fragments of experience, and they can be rewritten when you bring them into consciousness. When you say, I see this pattern and I no longer choose it, you begin to break the chain. Dreams can guide you in this rewriting. Perhaps you dream of standing at the edge of an ocean, watching waves crash against the shore. Each wave is like a memory, rising and falling, asking to be acknowledged. If you turn away, the waves keep pounding. But if you face them, if you let them wash over you, they lose their power to frighten you. This is how the unconscious works. The chaos within must be faced, not ignored. Only then can you find the still water beneath the storm. The empath often carries a secret resentment alongside their compassion. They give and give, but deep down they feel unseen, unappreciated, even used. This resentment is not a flaw, but a message. It tells you that your giving has become a survival strategy rather than a free act of love. When you give to others while abandoning yourself, you are not truly giving, you are bargaining, hoping that by sacrificing enough, you will be worthy of love. But you are already worthy. You always were. The moment you realize this, you no longer need cars to prove your value. Consider the archetype of the phoenix, the bird that burns itself to ashes only to rise again, renewed. The empath's addiction to chaos often leads them through cycles of burning relationships that consume them, experiences that leave them raw and broken. But in this burning lies the potential for transformation. If you allow the fire to teach you, if you sift through the ashes for the truth of who you are, you will rise like the phoenix, not weaker, but stronger, not addicted to chaos, but free from it. Freedom does not mean closing your heart. On the contrary, it means opening your heart in a new way. When you are no longer enslaved by the patterns of the past, you can love with clarity rather than compulsion. You can see another person as they truly are, without the veil of projection. You can love without losing yourself. And this kind of love is both tender and powerful. It is no longer about rescuing or being rescued. It is about two sovereign souls walking side by side, each whole, each free. There is a profound beauty in realizing that love is not meant to hurt. For many empaths, this truth feels radical. Love, they believe, must involve sacrifice, struggle, and the constant effort to hold things together. But this is not love. It is bondage disguised as devotion. True love is a meeting of equals, a harmony of two beings who have faced their shadows and are not afraid to grow. When you release the need for chaos, you create space for this kind of love to enter your life. Let us speak now of the collective shadow, for it is not only the personal unconscious that shapes our attraction to chaos. We live in a world that often glorifies drama, passion, and conflict. Stories of chaotic love fill our books, films, and songs. We are taught to believe that true love is a storm, that it must shake us, consume us, break us down. But this is a distortion. It is the collective shadow projecting its hunger for intensity. Do not let the world define what love means for you. Go inward. Ask your soul what it longs for. It will not say chaos. It will say connection, presence, safety, freedom. I have seen many people fear their own power. Empaths especially fear it because they associate power with harm. Perhaps they grew up around those who abused power, and so they learn to stay small, to avoid conflict, to always put others first. But this shrinking only feeds the addiction to chaotic relationships, because you seek in others the strength you deny in yourself. It is time to reclaim your power, not as dominance, but as sovereignty. Power does not have to harm. True power is the ability to remain rooted in your own truth. To say yes when you mean yes and no when you mean no, without guilt or fear. Your shadow contains this power. It also contains your anger, your boundaries, your fierce voice. These are not negative qualities. They are the guardians of your soul. When you integrate them, you no longer need to be consumed by the chaos of others. You can stand before the storm and say, "This is not my storm. I will not enter it." This is not coldness, it is wisdom. It is the knowledge that love cannot thrive in the midst of endless upheaval. Love needs roots, and roots grow in stillness. Imagine for a moment that you are standing in a quiet forest. There is no chaos here, only the soft whisper of leaves, the slow rhythm of the earth breathing beneath you. You feel your own heartbeat, steady and calm. This is what love can be: a forest, not a fire. But to find this forest, you must leave the burning cities behind. You must walk away from those who mistake your light for a torch to burn their darkness. This journey may be lonely at first, but soon you will discover that the forest is alive with its own music. A music you could never hear while lost in the noise of chaos. The greatest act of rebellion for an empath is to choose peace, to say, "I will no longer chase the storms. I will no longer mistake suffering for love." This choice will change your relationships, perhaps even end some of them. But what remains will be real. It will be love that does not require you to bleed to prove its worth. And so, I leave you with this: chaos is not love. Chaos is a mirror. It reflects the unhealed places within you, calling you to see, to feel, to awaken. Do not despise this mirror. It has been your teacher, but do not worship it. Either, when you are ready, step away from it, turn inward. The love you have been searching for in the storms of others has been waiting all along in the quiet chambers of your own soul. When you reclaim that love, when you learn to sit in stillness and feel its warmth, you will never again be seduced by chaos. Disguised as love, you will know the difference. And when love comes, true love, rooted in peace, in presence, you will recognize it. Not because it burns like fire, but because it feels like coming home,